Sky Striker is without a doubt one of the most popular archetypes in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! It has legions of legacy support, received its own official manga series, has multiple Facebook groups with thousands of members, and there's enough fan art out there to fill up your entire hard drive with. With that being said, it's also one of the most polarizing archetypes ever, with players often ragging on the theme and its fans pretty regularly. Some of that comes as natural backlash to Striker's absurd competitive dominance historically, it holding the most YCS wins in Yu-Gi-Oh! History after all, but some of the heat can probably be attributed to Konami's clear and blatant favoritism towards the theme, which leads me to the elephant in the room and the topic of today's video. It's an issue that no one seems to be talking about. Houston, we have a problem, and it's a Sky Striker problem. I've touched on the endless stream of Striker legacy support, which is even more apparent with the new Battles of Legends set, and of course the dedicated manga series, which is currently a top 20 best-selling series in Japan. But I'd like to start with what I believe is a glaring example of this problem, and that's the June 5th, 2023 Forbidden and Limited list for the TCG. While many applauded Kashtira hits, as well as Konami axing unhealthy auto win cards like Branded Expulsion and a Pointer of the Red Lotus, I have to admit I was completely shocked and baffled by Konami's decision to semi-limit Sky Striker Mobilize Engage and completely remove from the FNL list altogether Sky Striker Mecha Module Multi-Roll. The former, I believe, could end up being a grievous mistake, so let's begin there. For starters, one of the biggest problems duelists had with Engage to begin with was that it wasn't a hard once per turn. This led to scenarios where players would activate Engage, get a search, draw a card, make Ace Kagari, then do it all over again, netting a free Pot of Greed in the process. And while Engage can't search another copy of itself, it can draw into another Engage, which leads to turns where you can easily draw 3 cards. At that point, you're almost certain to win the game simply off the advantage that the Engages produced. In layman's terms, multiple Engages led to avalanches of advantage where the opponent basically had to pull off a cheese OTK in the next turn or have no hope of winning the grind game against Sky Striker. This is why the card was very tolerable at 0 or 1, but moving it back to semi-limited status opens the door up to all the problems that we wanted to get rid of in the first place. Games where it becomes have droll against Sky Striker or they're about to go +4 on you, which ironically kind of sounds like the format we just left and one of the biggest complaints about said format. Multi-roll going to 3 was also confusing. If you've played for a few years, you'll know that it took Striker getting some of its other cards hit and players going into the lab for a little while to figure out how insane this card was. But when they did, it basically became the center of the deck. Multi-roll can not only remove your opponent's ability to respond to your spells, effectively making them all spell speed 4s, but it's also godly in the grind game. It basically lets you reuse all your Sky Striker spells twice for free at the cost of banishing them when using them a second time. This effect works during both players' turns, thus giving it max utility, and even the cost of having to destroy one of your cards to get the first effect can be circumvented by sending Area 0 or dead spells that increase your spell count to, of course, unlock bonus effects. Considering Sky Striker has easily one of the strongest toolboxes ever, getting to use cards like Shark Cannon, Afterburners, Widow Wanker, etc. for a second time, for free by the way, is invaluable and something that most decks can only dream of. This is without even mentioning Sky Striker Ace Kagari, which already lets the archetype use their cards multiple times. Multi-roll at 3 means that Striker is going to see this card in most of their duels early and often, thus their grind game is going to be exponentially better. Now here's the thing, I'm sure half the people watching this video will probably say, oh come on Cap G, Sky Striker still sucks and it's not gonna do anything competitively with these new moves on the FNL list, and you may be right, but that's not the point here. I'm all for giving struggling archetypes their cards back off the ban list within reason of course, especially after they've served a lengthy sentence and if the general belief is that they're past their prime and won't instantly start taking over the competitive metagame again. But let's be honest here. Number 1, are we sure Sky Striker is completely past its prime? Because a lot of people would have said exactly that a little over a year ago, only to see the deck then win YCS Hartford's and go on to make 2nd place at the NAWCQ shortly after. Blah 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 blah, Mystic Mind this, Mystic Mind that doesn't matter to me because those things actually happened. Number 2, let's be fair here, that's not how Konami usually works when it comes to giving dominant and eventually hated high-tier competitive meta decks their cards back. Zodiac, for example, is probably the poster child for this. It barely even functions as a coherent strategy as currently constructed. They have 3 cards banned, another limited, and Konami doesn't seem to have any interest at all in giving them even the slightest bit of help of, oh, let's just say, for example, a Trident unban. How about True Draco, which has 2 of its key cards on the list, 3 if you actually consider counting Card of Demise. You could even take Sky Striker and compare it to some of its main rivals in Salamangreat, Thunder Dragon, and Orcus from the Heralded Toss formats, and it's so abundantly clear that it's in a far better position than its peers. All that despite the fact that it was the most dominant historically, which generally should correlate perfectly with punishment. Players have been asking to get Orcus Harp Horror unbanned for how long? How about Thunder Dragon Colossus returning? Hell, I don't think the Kali effect can get through a single banlist prediction without mentioning that card. My point is that Konami seems to be hyper-focused on getting Sky Striker back to full power, or at least very close to it, but rarely have this energy when it comes to other archetypes that have been off the competitive map since forever. Wind-up carriers and Mighty, anyone? I mean, it's in Master Duel. It's like Konami treats Sky Striker as their favorite child. Well, favorite child outside of Branded, that is. All the while forgetting that at the end of the day, it's technically just another deck building archetype. No different than Invoked, Eldritch, Drytron, or Mathmech. Yet I don't see any dedicated Golden Lord manga or new fusion monsters for Invoked, kind of like how Sky Striker gets a new Link monster every 6 months. It'd be one thing if Striker was an anime archetype used by an overwhelmingly popular character, like Blackwing or Hero, but it isn't. So why are they always putting this deck on a pedestal? I'm sure someone watching is going to completely miss the point of this video and say Cab G just hates Sky Striker, or something like, I don't want to duel against True Draco, keep the cards banned. Again, this misses the point of this video completely. You may hate dueling against Draco, but guess what? Complaining about Sky Striker was absolutely rampant years ago when the deck was dominant and winning YCS events. Heck, just look at Farfa's reaction to just the idea of Engage being unbanned.
Anything else banned? Anything else? Sky Striker? Grab Rave! Grab, yeah! Engage banned! Yes! Oh my god, they did it! They banned it! They banned it! They banned it! They banned it! Engage is banned! No more Engage into Engage! Misk, Skullcrabat, Striker Dragon Star. No! 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 No!
Yeah, clearly that's someone who just can't wait to duel against the Sky Striker deck again. My point is, everyone hates every meta deck. So unless it's some cheese FTK, it's pretty irrelevant if you want to duel against Draco, Zodiac, or Infernity again. If Sky Striker can get all its cards back, then so should these other decks. At the very least in some capacity. I'm not saying automatically put everything at full power. Maybe put Barrage and Trident to 1 and then go from there. Maybe have Diagram at 2 and consider unbanning Masterpiece to 1, and let's just see how that goes. To ignore these other decks and simultaneously push Sky Striker at every point imaginable is complete poppycock, and everyone knows it. Again, I'm not saying Konami can't look to restore an older or struggling archetype, but if you're going to do it, at least be fair about it, because I'd argue that Sky Striker as an archetype has not been power crept at all, and I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up doing extremely well at a YCS or maybe in a WCQ Euro level event, and maybe even win one later this year, which I'm sure at this point Konami would just love. Maybe Sky Striker gets so much favoritism because it sells manga, new cards, merchandise, etc, whereas True Draco is super niche at this point. But let's be real, that's no reason to base your decisions when it comes to the Forbidden Limited list. But at the end of the day, what do you think about this? Does Sky Striker legitimately receive unfair treatment for Konami? Is it basically like Branded, where their love for it seems to know no bounds, and ultimately is the June 5th Forbidden and Limited list just further proof of this? Leave it all in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching, as always.